Hello, everybody. So, this is our lecture on surrealism. And you'll notice I've given you a quote from Salvador Dali, who says, "The only difference between me and a madman is that I am not mad." So, surrealism is really known in art history as being a very boundary pushing movement about oddity and strangeness. And I had mentioned that a lot of Dada members end up moving over to surrealism. So, that kind of punny, funny jokiness of Dada gets wrapped into surrealism along the way as well. So you'll notice that a lot of Dada members kind of move on over and start operating in surrealism. But surrealism is about a sort of madness, we'd say. But Dali would say it's about constructed madness. You know, you're trying to inhabit the space of a madman, but you're not truly so. So it is about kind of trying to create this new sort of world that's more based on dreams or a sense of fractured reality than realism, let's say. Now, some important context for this, and you're seeing here the Surrealist exhibition of 1942, is to think about some of the background of Surrealism. And one of the things I wanted to mention is that just like with Expressionism, Futurism, you see a lot of manifestos again governing these movements. I had mentioned the idea of a manifesto movement. Surrealism is still a manifesto movement, and the writer of their manifesto was Andre Breton. If you recall, I gave you a quote by Breton talking about how, Cubism was the school of painting, Futurism, a political movement, Dada, a state of mind, right? So Breton, wrote the manifesto for this movement, kind of laid down what were the values of this movement. And as I mentioned, surrealism is really about sort of, taking yourself out of the out of normal reality. I'd say trying to plumb the depths of what your mind is what's possible for your mind to do. What is there that can be unleashed. They're very interested in the idea of the unconscious mind. The mind that can't be readily accessed when awake, when thinking. Right. What are the things that are sort of lingering below the surface, and how can they be used? So some of the things that they did were really about this sort of unconscious activity. You'll see the idea of automatic writing, for instance. Automatic writing was sort of a technique where you would let your mind go blank and then see what would happen. So, for like a poet, for instance, they would just let their mind go blank and see what words their hand eventually wrote on a piece of paper. For a painter, let's say, they would sit in front of a canvas and just sort of let their mind go blank and like let the hand start to move and then see what came from that. So this idea that you're not consciously navigating the world, you're letting your unconscious mind do that. Exquisite corpse is another interesting technique that they were using as well. It allowed for this idea of collective making, where the exquisite corpse, if you were making like a painting, you would have maybe three different people who were working on the painting. And the first person would do like the top half of the painting. The second person would do like the middle, and the bottom person would do the bottom. The last person would do the bottom, right? And the idea that they were all working kind of without consulting with each other, and that when you looked at the finished painting, it could have been like this Frankenstein's monster kind of thing. That you weren't consulting with each other, you're making it independent of each other's vision. In class, typically what I would do if we were in an in-person classroom is that I do it where I pass a pad of paper around and I tell the class, write a word down, any word. Don't think too long about it, just write it down. Again, unconscious mind, right? And I have them all write words down, and then I read the, as I put it, exquisite course poem. It's interesting. I always tell my students it's interesting what kind of words they pick and like what kind of collective unconscious is sort of there for us. They're usually looking at this picture, so they'll say things like spider webs or cobwebs, and they're not thinking like about the fact that the picture's influencing them, right? Or they'll say kind of those big ticket words. They'll just pick up like a crazy word and say it. Or they'll say like to me words that are very conceptual to us, like love or anger. And then typically when I teach this class in person, it's at 12:30. So it's right around the time where people are like either getting hungry, right, or not hungry. And so they sort of, in a sense, want to go eat. So they'll say things like food items like pizza, banana, whatever. So it's kind of funny. And then, you have this idea of the dreams and the unconscious world and, the things that you can't access through dreams, let's say. So again, this is all about sort of the unconscious mind and what it has to offer.